Welcome to the College Audition Podcast with your host, nationally renowned college audition coach, Tim Evanicki.
Hey everybody, Tim Evanicki here with the College Audition, here with another episode of the College Audition Podcast. I am so excited today to have our special guest, Stephen Schellhardt, head of musical theater and assistant professor at Roosevelt University's Chicago College of the Performing Arts. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Tim, for having me.
So, when I start with a new person every time, I always ask them first to tell us a little bit about themselves. You are fairly new to this position at Chicago College of the Performing Arts. So can you give us a little bit about your background and training, as well as, what led you to Roosevelt?
Sure. And yes, I am rather new to CCPA. I am a Chicago native. I grew up in Chicago. I grew up performing through, I went to a really great high school, New Trier High School in the Chicago area. It has a great performing arts program in a public school setting. So when I was really young, I had a lot of nervous energy and my mom didn't know what to do with it. So she put me in tap class, channeled all of that energy to my feet, which really helped. And so I kind of grew into a love for dance. And then I got into choir, and then I started doing theater in high school. And I realized when I was in school very fast that this is something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when I was looking at colleges, I looked at only conservatory programs. I ended up going to Carnegie Mellon University, studying with amazing people like Leslie Odom, Megan Hilty, Patina Miller, just incredible place to train. I left, I went as a musical theater major. I left graduated from Carnegie Mellon and went immediately on the national tour of Altar Boys, which was kind of like a cult following of an off-Broadway show. For people who don't know, Altar Boys. I was on the road for almost 2 years, and when I was thinking of what my next step was, I was auditioning while I was on the road. So I actually ended up auditioning for a production of Thoroughly Modern Millie at the Marriott Theater in Chicago. And I got the role of Jimmy, and that brought me back to Chicago. So kind of, my trajectory was going to New York after tour. That didn't happen right away. I came to Chicago, I started performing here, and I just got work. I was able to work here. I was able to be around my family. I was able to call myself an actor full time. I wasn't waiting tables or doing any of that. I had gotten my equity card from tour, so I was working at, many of the amazing theater companies here in Chicago for about four or 5 years. I met my now husband here doing a show through Jessie Mueller, who started her career in Chicago. She's a dear friend of ours, and she introduced us. And we decided to go to New York together. We were both, my husband went to Northwestern, another great musical theater program. We stayed in Chicago for a while together, decided to go to New York because we had that itch. We needed to scratch it. So we went there. We were in New York for about 6 years, performing as an actor on stage across the country, in some off-Broadway things. Also realizing that I needed to pay my bills in New York. I had about 4 or 5 day jobs. And I at the time, looking back, it's so funny. Looking back, I realize now that my day jobs consisted of all creative things that eventually led me to where I am today. Interning at a talent representation company, Stewart Talent in New York, working as a casting intern with Dave Clemens Casting, working the design department of Crate and Barrel, things that just filled my artistic void in some way. So I was doing that for a long time and getting access in those day jobs to casting, conversations that had to do with the audition process, conversations listening to agents and talent reps talk about their clients and looking at headshots all the time and fielding calls. And I really actually enjoyed it. So when it got to the time when my husband and I were thinking of starting a family, and I knew that it was probably not realistic for me to have a family in New York with the cost of living, having a background from Chicago I knew that this was a city that I could work. I could do a lot of different things as an artist. I could afford it, and I could live the life that I wanted to live. So we ended up getting married in 2012 and moved back a week later to Chicago. I started a production of Title of Show here, and was again working as an actor here in Chicago for a few years before I said, you know what, I'm more interested on the other side of the table. So I started assistant directing in the city. I became a company member of Boho Theater, which is a leading storefront theater here in Chicago, where I'm now the artistic director. I worked as the casting director and associate producer of Writers Theater in Glencoe, Illinois, which is a big equity theater here in Chicago. I was the casting associate for About Face Theater Company here in Chicago. And then I started directing and choreographing and teaching. Led me to taking a pause from performing and thinking about education and how important that was. I taught in the musical theater certificate program at Northwestern University for almost 3 years before coming to CCPA to kind of Northwestern was amazing, but it was a certificate program. I was really intrigued by another BFA, having the background I did at Carnegie. So that's why I moved to Roosevelt, and I've been here for the last 2 years, now heading up the musical theater program. So, I like to tell my students that education for me is the top of what I do. It's the most important. It's the most fulfilling for me right now in my life. But I started as an actor. I will always be an actor first. I've been in their position as a conservatory trainee. I have experience in casting, producing, directing, choreographing. I feel like I'm bringing a lot of information to my students that's current. While continuing to work as a professional artist here in the city myself.
So you're highlighting something that I actually say to my students often, and when they're looking at Roosevelt, and several of my students this year have actually been accepted into the musical theater program or the musical theater dance program,
Sure.
and that's that Chicago has a huge theater community and industry. And a lot of them are, they're skeptical because it's not New York. But I tell them, my students who have gone through Roosevelt in the past, most of them end up staying in Chicago because there's so much work to be had there. And that's not a negative. I mean, I moved to Orlando, Florida, right out of Juilliard. My plan was to work for the Mouse and get my equity card and go back to New York. And that was 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Because, even here in Orlando, the work just kept coming. And you sort of just highlighted what I said. You were able to leave and you came back to Chicago because there's so much work there.
I did. And, I think, to be honest, the biggest thing for me with any student I teach is this idea of career longevity. And I absolutely think, obviously, it's important to have, the dreams of going to New York and being in the Broadway market. That's absolutely a dream and should be. But what happens when you get a Broadway show and that closes? What happens when you're 40 or 50 or 60 and where do you go? I think going where the work is, being able to just constantly work in different aspects of the arts is more important, I think, than anything else. Because again, it's just longevity, a career.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I introduced you, I said you were head of musical theater at Roosevelt University's Chicago College of Performing Arts, and you referred to it as CCPA. That's always a question. Could you explain to us sort of what that structure is with the conservatory?
Yeah, so we are a conservatory, a theater conservatory. There's a music conservatory. We also have the Center for Arts Leadership, which is two main conservatories housed in a university setting. So while we are absolutely a part of Roosevelt University and the Gen Eds and the sort of those classes come from the university itself, the conservatory is its own thing with housed at Roosevelt. With its own classes, its own curriculum, and is supported by the university. But it is a conservatory within a university setting, for sure.
So when students are applying to CCPA, they have to be accepted to Roosevelt University and the program, or is their
Yes.
acceptance to the university contingent on acceptance to the program?
They have to be accepted into the university, and yes, and then we look at that for the conservatory as well.
Great. So let's dig into the program a little bit and talk
Sure.
more about that. I always ask the people I'm interviewing to give me their elevator speech on their program.
Oh
Tell
my
me
gosh.
what it is. Describe your program in your own words.
Sure. Well, I would say this. Because I love everything I do, every aspect of theater, I wouldn't be teaching at a university, at a conservatory that I didn't believe in. That's really important. I think life is too short, so I actually really, really love the program at CCPA. But yeah, the musical theater program, and I'm talking specifically about the musical theater. There's a musical theater dance emphasis. We're both Jane, who is the head of the musical theater dance, and I both believe that we are under the umbrella of the musical theater program with just a little bit slightly different emphasis. It's a rigorous conservatory-based, musical theater program in the heart of one of the best theater cities in the world. The program itself is designed to help artists and students master, a strong process and foundation in the skills that are required for a long and thriving career in the performing arts. We blend, our program blends very intensive musical theater training with music theory, keyboarding skills, weekly voice lessons, a sort of high level of acting training, scene work, period styles in acting. Our MTs take a full course load of dance as well, sort of emphasis on ballet, tap, modern, jazz, musical theater styles. So some of the great choreographers, Jerome Robbins, Fosse, there's just so many styles that we tackle in our dance program as well. And really, again, it's a conservatory, so it's rigorous. It's 8:30 in the morning conditioning to 10 o'clock at night with rehearsals for 4 years. Our program is really unique, I think, because of our performance opportunities. I mean, I wasn't at Carnegie. I wasn't allowed to perform until I was a junior, with the philosophy that we train and our teachers weed out the sort of bad skills, the techniques that we shouldn't be using, and fill us with all the ones before we earn getting on stage. I don't believe in that philosophy. I think we learn by doing in this profession, and the sooner we can apply what we're learning in the class to production or a performance opportunity, the better. So our students are allowed to perform or have performance opportunities all 4 years, even as freshmen, which I think is really unique and lovely. Then sophomore year, obviously all of our students are able to be in the audition pool, but our upperclassmen audition for professional theater here in the city all the time. We have students working going to classes during the day, and some of them are performing at night because, like you said, there's so much theater here in Chicago. So yeah, that's sort of my elevator pitch. I think it's a really fantastic program. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I know I'm rather new to heading it up, but I believe in the direction we're going in. And I really love the students that I'm able to teach.
Great. We hope to have Jane Lanier on the podcast soon, Tony nominee and Broadway
Yes.
legend Jane Lanier, who runs the musical theater dance program there. Can you explain, is there any crossover? I have a student there now in musical theater. I have a student there now in musical theater dance. Do they work with the same teachers? Are they ever in classes together? How does that work?
Absolutely. And you know what? I will be honest, that's changing. It's like we're in transition right now because Jane and I both believe that there should be more crossover, but there absolutely is already. So for example, Jane teaches musical theater students, I teach musical theater dance students. Everyone is in the same audition pool, so musical theater majors can audition for plays, acting majors can audition for musicals, musical theater dance majors can audition for plays. It's all sort of collaborative in that aspect. But right now, I like to think of the emphasis, because that's confusing to people, right? What really makes our program unique is that we have a musical theater dance emphasis. There's nothing like that across the country. And I like to think of that as, if you, for example, I came into musical theater as a tapper. That was my in at a young age, and I danced throughout my childhood. That was what I loved to do. That was a skill that I thrived at. I feel like if I was applying to schools now, I would apply to Roosevelt as a musical theater dance major, because I know that my goal for myself was those big Broadway ensembles, that you can get into and dance and teach and choreograph. That is where I would go. But the musical theater major is similar. You get all of the same acting training for both sort of emphasis. You get the same voice lessons for both emphasis. You just have a little bit more dance classes. Like musical theater majors dance twice a week. Musical theater dance majors dance 5 times a week. And musical theater majors get a little more voice lessons, a little more time on their voice lessons than musical theater dance majors. So it evens out, really. But there is a lot of crossover. We're constantly talking about how we can make it more. Next year, for example, the musical theater majors and the musical theater dance emphasis are going to be in the same acting class. They're going to be mixed in the same acting classes, and I think that's important too.
Great. So you mentioned briefly that you don't agree with the theory that freshmen shouldn't perform. So can you walk us through a little bit about what the performance opportunities are at Roosevelt right from freshman year onwards?
Yeah. So when you come in freshman year is really focused on foundational skills, getting you comfortable in your own skin, getting you comfortable up and doing the thing, performing, ensemble-based training so that you can feel like you're in an environment that encourages risk-taking, encourages failing, because I think it's important that that our students fail and get up and try again and grow and learn. That's part of it. So that's the emphasis, is basically ensemble and getting you comfortable doing the thing you're about to do sophomore year. So we have 2 main sort of performance opportunities for freshmen. Freshman Showcase, which is what they do immediately in the fall. Next year, the people directing that will be the heads of the program. So Jane, myself, and the 2 heads of acting, Barbara and Jim, so that we have access to the freshmen. They have access to us. We can introduce them to our program, to our upperclassmen, to our faculty. And that's just a showcase. That's performing a song, performing a monologue, revealing a little bit about their human to the school. And that's fall. And then in the spring, we have 3 different sort of opportunities. The acting majors get a showcase. The musical theater dance majors get a thing called Freshman Footlights. And the musical theater majors, freshmen in the spring, get the American Songbook, which is another sort of showcase-based just freshmen. So they have those 2 performance opportunities for the school, and then start of sophomore year, everyone's in the audition pool. We do about 17 productions a year in the Theater Conservatory, which is a lot. There's almost 250 plus productions in both conservatories a year. And those are main stage productions. There's 2 sort of main stage musicals every year. There's 2 plays on the main stage in the O'Malley. We have a black box theater that we do a lot of showcases. We do a lot of cabaret style events. We have student driven work that's being created. I'm in the process of trying to create a cabaret series of how do you market yourself, how to create your own work. And so there's just a lot of performance opportunities. When you get a chance, when you're a junior or senior, and if you're in good standing with your classes and your grades, then you have the opportunity to go out and audition professionally for stuff happening in the city. And, obviously, what's great about Chicago is there are over 250 non-equity theaters, non-union theaters, which means they rehearse at night. So our students do, most who are non-union, have the opportunity to take classes during the day and really make rehearsals, get on the train, go to where they need to do a professional development opportunity at night. So all 4 years, there's something to do on stage, putting what we learn in class and applying it to
Wow,
performance.
250 non-equity theater opportunities. I mean, theaters in Chicago. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's really great. And you actually encourage your students to participate in those auditions and things. So that's
absolutely. Yeah.
great. Talk to me a little bit about the venues. Where are your performances held? I saw a show in the before times, before COVID. I saw Into the Woods, and it was in a black box style theater that I walked into the theater and thought, they're going to do Into the Woods in this theater. How is that going to be possible? And I was blown away
Yeah.
by just the artistry that was accomplished, and making it really an incredible performance.
Yeah.
So I kind of rambled a bit there, but talk to us a little bit about your venues.
No, I love that. And I love that you feel that. I feel that way too, especially coming from an artistic director at a non equity theater in Chicago where the goal is always how do you get creative with your spaces. And I think we do that really well at Roosevelt. Obviously, we have the building, our main building, which is on Michigan Avenue. It's I love it because it feels so historical. There's the architecture, the feeling of it feels just sort of old school. And we have the O'Malley Theater, which is a thrust theater where we do most of our musicals. And I think that's where Into the Woods was. But we also have the Miller Theater, which is a black box on the ninth floor, which is, 200 max people can get in there, so it's a little bit more of a flexible space. We have Gons Hall, which is where we share space. It's a beautiful concert hall. We share space with the Music Conservatory. We do some concerts in there, cabarets in there, and then we also have a new building down where our beautiful new dance studios are. And we sometimes do little performances and stuff in the dance studios as well. So most of our performance opportunities are housed in our conservatory right there.
Great. Is there an opportunity to minor if you are a BFA musical theater student?
That's a great question. It depends. I will say, since we're conservatory based, our students are required to take a limited amount of general education courses, one per semester. And depending on whether a student is coming into the program with AP credits or college credits they've already taken, or if students are willing to take summer classes, a minor could be possible, but there's not a guarantee. And, during the year, it's rigorous. We're dancing, singing, acting all the time, and in rehearsals at night. So there's not a lot of time to have to take other classes outside of the conservatory, unless, again, like I said, you're willing to take summer classes or have AP credits that kind of help along the way.
What about a minor even within the conservatory? I've had that question before from students. Do BFA musical theater students have access to the music conservatory as far as taking additional lessons, maybe on an instrument, or is there a dance minor or anything
Yeah.
within the conservatory?
There's not at this point. I think, again, that is something we are striving to sort of expand upon, because like I said, career longevity, we need skills in a lot of things. How many times have you seen an audition notice that says, "Do you play an instrument?" It's so true. We need to have that cross collaboration. There's just currently we're in a kind of curriculum review, and we're trying to find more opportunities for students to take those classes. But our current schedule right now, I'm even thinking of sophomore year, is like the hard, we call it sophomore slaughter only because it's just so hard. It's such a, you literally wake up at 8 a.m. and you go until 10 p.m. at night. with classes that are structured for you in the conservatory. So there really is limited time to take things outside. But again, it's a student, it's an individual basis. It's never ever discouraged to not ask. I think it's always encouraged to kind of say, I'm interested in this. How can I support my own education? How can you help me support my own education? And we will obviously have that dialogue and conversation.
So we talked a little about already about the massive theater community there and what Chicago has to offer in that respect. But can you talk a little bit more about where Roosevelt is in Chicago and sort of what's in the neighborhood and what students can sort of expect as far as life outside of the conservatory?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, our program, our school is in the heart of one of the best cities, one of the most beautiful cities, but also one of the best theater cities. It's in the heart of Chicago. It's right downtown, right by Ida B. Wells Drive, right by Grant Park and the Fountain and Millennium Park, right by the Symphony, right by the Art Institute of Chicago, right by DePaul and Columbia. So there are other schools right around. It's in the heart of the city. So it is how you would feel. You go out the doors and you are in it. There's noise. There's people all over the place. Just an energy to the city that keeps you, I think, fueled. And it's the energy I feel in New York, but it's not as overwhelming. Chicago is a little more. You can navigate the city better, knowing that the water is always east. That's another thing. You're right on Lake Michigan. It's gorgeous. So you're right in the heart, and our students some of them live in the dorms right there in our building, but a lot of them live in apartments with other students in the city. They take public transportation in. They live sort of in these little neighborhoods. What I love about Chicago is it's just comprised of so many different neighborhoods, like Andersonville, which is a Swedish neighborhood, the Ukrainian Village, Southport Corridor. A lot of our students live about 20 minutes out and commute in, because with New York it's so concentrated. You have theaters concentrated in very specific areas. Chicago is really spread out. So for example, one of the best equity theaters to perform at in Chicago is Paramount Theater. It's about an hour drive from the heart of the city. But it's still considered Chicago theater. So that's interesting for our students to wrap their heads around, that it's very spread out. But the school itself is in it. You are immersed in city feel, city vibe. There's great restaurants. The food here is amazing. There's amazing music opportunities in Grant Park in the summer. There's just dance studios all around. So much opportunity. And I really do feel like it's in a huge city that is a little more you can navigate it a lot better than if you were in New York. It's not as overwhelming.
I always say it feels like a much cleaner, happier New York.
There you go.
And I lived in New York for a long time, so
Yeah.
I love the feel of Chicago. And you mentioned the dorms briefly, and I have to say, Roosevelt has probably the nicest dorms with the best view that you will find at any college campus.
So unfair. I look back on the dorm I was in. I was like in the basement of this place called Mudge at CMU with one tiny window. I mean, the dorms are gorgeous, and you are
Incredible.
looking out at the water. I mean, who wouldn't enjoy that?
Is beautiful. Let's move on now and talk a little bit about auditions, which is
Sure.
why most students are probably listening to this podcast. They want to know what the audition process is like and
Sure.
any tips or pointers they can get. So let's start real quick with numbers.
Okay.
How many pre-screens do you receive each year?
Yeah, for all three programs, so musical theater, dance, and acting, on an average, we receive about 750, 750, 800 a year.
And from those pre-screens, how many are invited to a live audition?
About 500.
About 500. And how many students if you know the other programs, but you can speak specifically about yours, how many students do you aim for an incoming class?
Well, we like to keep student-teacher ratio manageable. I think that's really important with our program, the ability to have individual access to our students and to be able to work with them for a good amount of time instead of just 10 to 15 minutes here and there like some other programs. So we're looking for a class of 25 is sort of the prime number, knowing that we admit slightly over that because not everyone will accept. But 25 is kind of the max. Right now, just to give you an idea, our senior musical theater class is 18, our junior musical theater class is 14, and our freshman musical theater class is 25. So it's sort of a range in there.
So this time of year especially, everyone is talking about wait lists. And I've gone over this with several of the other people that I've interviewed and talked to. But approximately how many students do you put on your wait list that you're working through once, the offers that have gone out?
That's a good question, and I don't actually have a great answer for you because it just depends. It depends on the year, it depends on the class, it depends on individual based. I would say there's a probably about 30 on the wait list, and as as people accept or decline, we obviously move to that wait list and hope that we can get in as many as we can. I mean, the thing is that it's so many wonderful, talented students apply, and we hope that they also think that they could train here and that Roosevelt and CCPA is right for them. But it's such a keeping numbers small. If we could have it, we would accept everyone who into the program that we feel should be there. But because we want to keep it capped at 25, it's a little trickier.
Do you actually watch the pre-screens, or is it sort of divide and conquer?
I try to watch all the musical theater pre-screens, but it is divide and conquer. We have amazing heads of our programs, and the heads of the acting watch some musical theater auditions. I watch some acting auditions. Jane watches some acting auditions, and we kind of divide and conquer. But I really do try to look at all of the applicants that are coming in for musical theater. I think that's my job, and it's really great to see the diverse group of students that are up and coming.
So what are some things that you look for when you're watching those pre-screens? What are the qualities of a student that's right for CCPA?
Sure. Well, these virtual auditions have been fascinating because you get the ability to have a wildcard video, which kind of lets you in a little bit on the human in front of us, what the interests are. And I always like to say what I'm looking for, what I personally am looking for in front of me is a human, right? To telling me a story, making me feel something. It doesn't always come down to, can you hit the highest note? And is it the best sound? No, it's, do I feel something when you are telling me a story? Are you connected to the text? Do you know not just what the words are, but what they mean? Do you have a point of view? Are you unapologetic, right? I think that's a big thing for me is we are all humans trying to do what we love, right? And I'm not here to judge my students. I'm here to assess my students, and there's a difference. And I think having that common knowledge that my success is my student's success, I think is huge. So I just look for someone who has basic foundational skills. Can you sing? Can you move? Can you tell a story? Are you unapologetic? Do you have a drive for this? Do you have a passion for this? Do you have a way of talking about musical theater that's not just I want to make it on Broadway? I think that's important for me too. Broadway is wonderful, but it's not the end all be all. Again, long career, thriving career. And also, with CCPA, we are housed in a university that has a social justice mission, which is why I was attracted to this university in the first place. So socially aware humans that are going to use music and theater as a catalyst for a better world, I think is also something that I am intrigued by. What are they fighting for? What do they believe in? And that's also something I look for as well.
You mentioned the Wildcard video, so I want to go down that road for a
Yeah.
second because I haven't actually chatted with anyone else about the Wildcard videos yet. So when I'm coaching my students, I tell them that Wildcard video should actually not have anything to do with singing, dancing, or acting. They
I
want to
love that.
see the person. They want to see something else that you're interested in. What do you have to say to that?
I say yes, and I agree with that completely, Tim. I think, look, again, we are humans. We love what we do, but this can't be the only thing. And I tell my students that I teach too, like, expand your horizons, get to know people in the university, not just the conservatory. Get out and meet people. Surround yourself with a chosen family that is supportive and asks you how you are and not what show you're auditioning for. And I think that goes back to this idea of the wild card. I want to see, like, do you love to cook? What do you love to cook? What are things that are your hobbies that fill your heart when you are not performing? What are possible things? For me, I love design. I worked, like I said, at Crate and Barrel Design Department. In my free time, I'm doing home projects, I'm doing design projects, and that has filled my soul when I'm not doing theater, but it's also given me revenue. It's given me money. It's made me able to have a life that is long and thriving in what I really love to do. So some of these wild card things that you think, oh, this is just a hobby, now can become a career or can become something that you fall back on when you are in between jobs.
And I usually tell them too, whether you're auditioning for musical theater, acting, musical theater dance, or just dance, you're all of these programs are auditioning for being a storyteller. You are a storyteller first. So in your wildcard video, just sit and talk at the camera a little bit during that 60 seconds. So, or make a narration. If you're sharing your artwork, share photos of your artwork with a narration over it, or something where you can just show the people who are watching the videos that you are a storyteller. And I have students that come to me that say, well, I definitely want to show them that I can tap dance. Well, okay, if that's the only other thing about you, let's
Right.
go with that. But let's frame it with some narration of you talking to the camera and talking about your career in tap, maybe some of the awards you won or something, and cut away to some tap videos. They don't need to see more of you dancing. You've already showed them that. Show them
Agreed.
that you can tell a story.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because I think, that's something that's really great about our program. We are actors first. We are storytellers first. Whether you are singing, whether you are speaking text, or whether you're moving, there's always a story to tell, and it should feel the same. And that's why I love that our program has such a foundation in acting. I teach acting for the musical stage. Pretty much that's the class that I teach for every year, and it's my favorite because it is an acting class for musical theater majors. It is the basis of everything we do. Is we tell stories, and so you're right. The wild card should be about you. It should be
Right.
about your human.
Was this the first year that you did pre-screens, or was it last year? I know it's
Last year.
relatively new. Last year was the first year of pre-screens. So you sort of went into this virtual audition world being fairly new to pre-screens. Do you feel like you're going to leave the virtual audition as an option in the future, or has that been discussed at all?
It's definitely been discussed, and look, I think we've all learned a lot from this last year, just in terms of virtual, non-virtual, in-person, live. There's no replacement for being in live and having the energy of a human in front of you so that you can talk and you can get to know someone, and the energy they bring into the room. There's no substitute for that. However, there are also there's a lot more reach when you go into virtual. There are a lot of students that can't get to Chicago right now. There are a lot of people that want to come to this school that can't get out here and audition in person, and that we should be able to see anyone who thinks that this could be a great place for them to train. So I do feel like there will be a combination of both. It's how I feel about classes. We've been remote all year. We haven't been in person since March of 2020. And while that has been really frustrating, it's taught us a lot. It's taught me the importance of being in person and why I love what I do, for sure. But it's also taught that we have a broader reach. Even in our showcase, we do a live in-person Chicago showcase with our seniors. We have since the beginning. Last year was the first year we went to a digital format because we had to. And this year I've gotten so many emails from agents or casting directors who have said, hey, I saw your virtual showcase and I was really intrigued and compelled by the talent that your school is shelling out. I would love to bring some of your students in for auditions. Those people who have reached out to me would never have been able to make it to an in-person showcase and would never have been able to see those performances if we weren't virtual. Right. So the benefits are great. So I do think that it would be smart for us and a lot of universities across the country to think about how we can start incorporating a virtual element into how we reach across the country.
I hope you do, and I hope you're right that other universities will jump on board
Me
for that
too.
too. It sounds like most of them are saying, from who I've talked to, that they're going to have some sort of virtual option
A hybrid.
moving forward. Yeah. So as we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel with this COVID nightmare, what's coming up for the school? What are some exciting things that we can look forward to as we start to return back to normalcy?
Sure. Well, I mean, just the fact that we will be together. I think it's fascinating to me that there's 25 freshmen in the musical theater program who have never, a lot of them haven't met each other in person. They've only known each other from these boxes. So the release of energy, the passion that I feel like is going to come flooding back when people are back in person is really exciting. The plan right now, fingers crossed, knocking on every piece of wood I can see, is to be in person in the fall, teaching again at the school. That means we're back to treating it the way we did before COVID. We're going to have productions in our main stage. Obviously, we will be safe and take precautions depending on the situation. But the goal is to get back to doing what we do best, which is training for a live in-person profession, live theater. And again, that means 17 productions, over 250 opportunities, concerts with the conservatories, and having some sort of coming together celebration at the top of the year where we can reflect and learn from what we've just been through and what we're going through.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, it's been so nice to sit down and get an opportunity to finally chat with you. If students have any more questions about the program or they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
They can reach out to me through my email, which is just schellhardt@roosevelt.edu. Always, I'm open for questions. And I just want to thank you too, Tim, for doing what you do, because I will say, if I had had access to you and your amazing workshops and podcasts and resources when I was in college, I just feel like I would have been much more informed and better prepared. So thank you so much for all you do.
Well, that means a lot to hear you say that. So thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back for some workshops really soon.
Yes, anytime.
All right.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Yeah, you have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. For more information on the exciting training, workshops, and masterclasses offered by the College Audition, please visit us online at www.thecollegeaudition.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok.